Hey guys, good afternoon. It is Chris with Nichols Retirement Empire, and I haven't done one of these in a while, but it is time to do a Nightmares from the 70s video. It's been a while since I've done one, but growing up in the 70s, if you were there, you may have some nightmares yourself, but today's Nightmare from the 70s is going to be about Halloween. We have Halloween coming up, guys. It's getting close. It is drawing nigh. So let's talk about it, what it was like. Now, my experience in the 70s is probably going to be different from yours. Some of you guys may be just like mine. I don't know. But when I lived on Lookout Mountain, and it was a very rural area. It was about 25 miles outside of Chattanooga. And that was the nearest, big city. And so, we didn't have a lot of neighbors and things like that. So for Halloween, if we're going to go trick-or-treating, a lot of you guys may have walked and went to places in your neighborhood and stuff like that. We couldn't walk. I would have had to walk 10 miles to go by 10 houses. And all 10 of those houses probably were not going to be trick-or-treating, because you had to get in your car and take your kids trick-or-treating in the car, and you'd go from place to place in the car. So if you had kids, then you were in the car driving around taking your kids, so you weren't trick-or-treating. You didn't have your lights on, and you didn't have candy at your house for people to come by and pick up. And it's not like it is today in a lot of these neighborhoods. Like, I live in a neighborhood, and I just take my candy and set it out here on the porch, and the kids can come by and get candy. You couldn't do that where I lived. If you left candy sitting out on your porch, the animals would eat it. It would be, there were animals everywhere. There were dogs everywhere. And so when you took your kids out and you drove around, you only went to the houses where you knew the dogs, because everybody had dogs. It was out in the country. And I'm not talking about cockapoos, like the little dogs like I got in there. I'm talking about big outside dogs that could survive in the country. And some people had a lot of them. Like, it might be a case where some guy's got 10 dogs, So you didn't want to go trick-or-treating at the houses with all the ferocious dogs. Even if they weren't going to bite you, just the fact that there was a whole herd of them was scary enough. And they were loud and barked real loud, and all just ran around everywhere loose. So you had to know where the dogs were. Of course, you only went to the places where the lights were on. And I'll tell you one thing that was cool about it was that there were so few trick-or-treaters that they just let you get however much candy you wanted. I mean, because we only probably went to 7 or 8 houses on the, where we lived, and we'd drive around all over the place to get to those 7 or 8 houses. But when you got to the house and you got up there and you did your trick-or-treat thing, I mean, you got handfuls of candy. And so we got plenty of candy. No complaints there, man. I was loaded up. When I was a kid, I was not deprived of candy. I can promise you right now, I had all the candy you could deal with. And I don't know why I brought that up, but I got a lot of candy. I was blessed. When you went to the store, they had, for the Halloween, today we have whole stores that are just Halloween stores. And people decorate. No, I mean, nobody decorates. Some people put a real pumpkin on their porch and made a jack-o'-lantern out of it. And that was about the extent of any Halloween decoration that I saw at anybody's house. And hardly anybody had that. All you got was the light on trick-or-treat night, or whatever. So there weren't any decorations. There weren't any stores dedicated to Halloween costumes. But, down at the Five and Dime or the, Kmart, whatever. We didn't have Walmart. The nearest Walmart was probably Bentonville, Arkansas. When I was a kid, there wasn't any Walmarts, and so, but we did have the Kmart. So you would go in there, and they'd have these little bitty masks that were hard plastic, and they were little, because only little kids trick or treated. You didn't trick or treat if you were 13, 14 years old. You trick or treated when you were a little kid. So they had all these little bitty hard masks, and you'd put them on. and they'd have you know, the eye holes and the little bitty tiny breathe through things, so we all sounded like Darth Vader back before there was a Darth Vader. You know, we could barely breathe through these little things, and they had rubber bands that would, like, you know, I don't know what those rubber bands were made out of, but man, when you put that mask on your face with that rubber band, it was plastered to your face. And of course, we all had hair. You know, you all had long hair and bangs. All the boys had bangs, so your bangs would be sticking out the eye holes, and your hair would all be stuck in that rubber band. So whenever you took off that mask, it'd tear out half your hair. But that was what you had. Now, if you were really well off, or your parents were really into Halloween, you didn't just get the mask, but you got the paper, plastic, whatever it was made out of, outfit that went with it. And you need to go back. If when you get off this video, go on Google and search 1970s Halloween costumes, and you're going to see some pretty interesting mask. I mean, when I saw the mask on it, I remembered all the masks, and there were a lot of generic kind of ones too. Now, you had the ones that were, you know, Superman, Spider-Man, you know, stuff like that, and then you just had the real cheap ones that were just like some clown or some monster looking face or some this weird, you know, a princess. It was like a generic princess kind of mask. Everybody had these masks on, you know, and that was pretty much that was our outfit. You know, I had the mask on and my clothes. That was it. In a bag. We didn't get, every once in a while, no, I think we always just had a grocery bag. So you'd have a grocery bag and now let's get this straight, a paper grocery bag, because you didn't have plastic, because plastic was bad for the environment. And then they told us that the paper was wasting, was messing up the environment, so we switched to plastic, and now we're switching back to, but anyway, we had the paper, or if you had a bucket, you could carry, like the bucket your dad washed the car in, you could carry that, because you could put a lot of candy in that. That's a big bucket. You had all these jackets and hoods and junk, and then the little mask. So it was fun. It was good times. And we actually, everybody that we went to came out on the porch and talked to us. You know, nobody just put their stuff out on the porch. You know, you had to ring the doorbell. They had to come out. Sometimes they would give you the candy. Sometimes they'd let you pick it out, you know, stuff like that. But it was a good time. And we got all the cool candy. And then you'd go home and you'd get in front of the television console, you know, that had the big entertainment center that was as wide as this porch, that was all wood, with a television and the player, you know, the phonograph player, the record player, and then, you know, you might have a cassette player if it was, you know, really modern, and then you had the radio with a big dial that was down in there, and then you had the speakers built in. So you had that big thing, and you'd get in front of it, and you'd turn on, you know, the Carol Burnett show or whatever was on, and you would spread your candy out and divide it all up so you knew how much you had, and then you would trade. I had a sister, so me and her would swap, and then we would prepare to defend our candy for the rest of the week against my dad. Yeah, we had a blast. Now, I will say this. There's another Halloween nightmare that I have to talk about, and it wasn't in the 70s. When I moved to a small town in northwest Georgia that was in that same county, in it was 2000. We had, you know, Halloween. First year I was there, Halloween rolls around. And so we went and bought a couple bags of candy, and, you know, okay, Halloween's coming, let's get ready. You know, we got little bitty babies. Our kids weren't even old enough to trick or treat yet, so I was going to be at the house. So here I am at the house, no kids to take trick or treating, and for some reason Tammy wasn't there. I don't know why she wasn't there. I don't know what was going on, but I was there by myself, and I had no idea what was about to ensue. Apparently, in that county, there were two mountains. Okay, there was a mountain on each side, and then you had the valley in between. And there was an interstate that ran through the valley, and there was the little town, and there were only about 5 subdivisions in that whole town, in that whole county. There weren't subdivisions. And so now that we're into the modern era, 2000, everybody's going to carry all their kids. And guess where they carried them? Both mountains and the whole valley, the whole county, everybody came to those 5 subdivisions. I had no idea that this was going to happen. So I got my little bucket. I was going to sit out on the porch and be nice to the kids, and be cool and all this. And so way before dark, way before dark, because when I was a kid, you didn't go out until it was dark. So, it's 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Somebody's already here looking for candy. And I'm like, good night, man. These people get started early around here. And the next thing I know, it was like Little Bighorn. It was like the Japanese at Pearl Harbor. I had no earthly idea it was going to be an onslaught of people. Every kid in that whole county was in my subdivision. I swear, every one of them. There were people coming by. It would be like a church, and they'd have the church name on their truck, and they're driving by, and they were pulling a trailer like that you haul hay on, and the whole trailer was full of kids, 40, 50 kids on one trailer. And they'd come by and they'd stop, and all the kids would get out. It was like school buses coming by. I have never in my life seen as many kids. And at first, the first kid that came up, man, I grabbed a big handful of candy and threw it in his thing, Happy Halloween, And the kid looked at me so funny, like, what is wrong with you, man? And I was thinking, well, that's how it was when I was a kid. You got a whole handful of candy. Man, I found out real quick. I ran out of candy in 30 minutes. And that was after the first couple of kids. I figured out I need to start giving them like two pieces of candy a piece. And so I started giving them 2 pieces a piece. And then I was out, literally, within 30 minutes. All the candy was gone. There was no way I could go. I was like, man, I got in my house. I cut off my lights. I cut the TV off. Man, I just hid because there were so many. It was horrible. I was scared to death, man. It was just unbelievable. It wasn't anything at all like when I was a kid. There was people everywhere. It was a nightmare. The other good thing about when I was a kid that was not a nightmare is you didn't have all the crazy movies like you got now. But now in 1978 is when Halloween came out. And of course, this was before all the crazy special effects and all the stuff like they got now. But when Halloween came out, man, that scared us to death, man. The only special effect was that guy had on a mask, and they couldn't kill him. And I remember when my friend told me about the movie and what all happened and how they couldn't kill the guy, And of course, it didn't hurt that it had Jamie Lee Curtis in it too, So we all had to go see Halloween. So that was the first kind of scary movie. Now, the only other scary movies in the 70s was about 73. I think you had Exorcist. And that one was so terrifying that people were like having mental breakdowns. That was a horrifying movie. Nothing to do with Halloween, but that was a scary movie. And then I think they had Carrie, like maybe 76, something like that, which also didn't really have anything to do with Halloween. So there's your 2 scary movies, and then Halloween hits in 78. And didn't have any effect whatsoever. We all just kept going and getting all the candy we could get until we got too big to wear the mask. So that's Nightmares of the 70s Halloween version. Guys, let me know how your Halloween went when you were a kid. And hopefully there were no nightmares. Thanks for watching, guys.